Hello. Hi. Good morning. My name is Shane Brody. I'm here in Texas. What part of Texas are we in? Kind of
East Texas,
East
Piney
Texas.
Woods.
Piney Woods, East Texas. There we go. And there's a lot of pollen, but luckily that pollen got washed away, at least temporarily, by some torrential rains last night. And I was very excited about that because it cooled everything off and washed it all away and calmed everything down. I've been kind of running around, and I was just in the big city. I was just in Houston, Texas, which is an intense city. And it's nice to be in a small town, relatively small town, and out here. And I love the country roads. I love driving on these little country roads out here. I'm going to really miss that, actually, because I'm selling my car. Anyway, I'm a trans person who's been traveling around the U.S. talking to trans, intersex, non-binary, gender non-conforming people, allies, and also some parents. And I've just been having the time of my life, actually. I love doing this. I love meeting people. There's also been quite a few challenges. At some point, I'll talk about this in its own video, kind of a recap of what my project was like. So today we're here in the Piney Woods, and I have a guest here, and they are going to introduce themselves in the way that they feel comfortable with. Yeah.
Hi, my name is River, and I'm a trans man.
Yeah.
Obviously, I live in East Texas.
Yes.
And I'm very local. I'm very active in the local trans group.
Okay.
Also, I'm the treasurer for the Factory Rejects Motorcycle Club.
Oh, I keep hearing about you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty exciting because we only know of one other motorcycle club.
Yes.
In the U.S.
What is the other one, by the way?
The Original Gentlemen, and they are up in Kansas City.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I saw a post by them, and I was like, oh, I wish I was going to Kansas City, to talk to them.
Yeah, we're planning to make a trip up there eventually.
You're going to have a rally.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I want to see pictures from that rally.
I'm sure we'll take lots of pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I bet that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun.
Definitely.
Somebody should do like a little documentary about that or something. I mean, because that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just got 2 new prospects, so that's really exciting.
Okay.
We've been trying to talk a lot of the trans people into joining us.
Sure.
Because the Original Gentlemen...
Do you also take, like, mopeds and stuff?
No.
Okay.
2 wheels, motorcycle.
Okay. How about mods? No.
Yeah. But,
no tricycles?
No, not those either. Sorry.
All right.
But, yeah, and the Original Gentlemen are gentlemen.
Yeah.
So we're the only ones who take, women and...
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay, so you're a mixed club.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, great. Yeah, that would be so fun to see pictures from that. I would... Oh, goodness gracious. That's actually my favorite part of, like, gay pride events, right? Mm-hmm. Everything else, I'm like, I can just skip over all that stuff. But, like, the dykes on bikes and the mics on bikes and all the permutations that they have now, I'm sure they're a lot more inclusive these days. But that's my favorite part,
That's awesome.
Yeah, everybody getting dressed up and riding their bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you... sorry, I keep clearing my throat. Once again, it's the pollen, the glorious pollen out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so did you grow up here in this area?
No. I'm originally from California.
Oh, okay.
I was about 28 years old.
You sound more like from California.
Yeah. I don't have the local accent for sure.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I was about 28 when I moved here, so most of my adult life has been in California, but I've been here since 2005, so
okay.
I'm pretty much a local at this point.
Yeah, that's a while. And so that's a really big move. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about why you moved? Because that's pretty significant. Were you living in a urban place, by the way, in California, or also living rurally?
It was a town with about 350,000.
Okay.
So
okay.
A good size. That's like a medium-sized town in Southern California.
Yeah.
But yeah, I moved here. Some friends moved here to be with family. And I was having a really hard time making ends meet. Mm-hmm. I was working 2 jobs, 7 days a week, and I was just tired. So they said, like, I could move here, stay with them, until I got on my feet, and I got a job right away and everything, so.
Okay. But still, that's a really big move. It was something attracting you to this place? Like, what was attractive about it?
The cost of living.
Cost of living.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, and I've also experienced that myself. I feel like I'm an escapee of California. Yeah, I was living in the Bay Area, and anybody who it seems like lives in California kind of has to play this game of shuffling their lives around to various little communities because they're priced out, or the house that they're in gets sold out from under them. If they're a renter, which pretty much everybody I know is a renter. Yeah. Yeah,
that happened to me, actually. But my first apartment was $450 a month in California.
Oh,
And the prices, I bet that apartment's at least $1,500 now.
Right. So. Yeah. I when I first moved up to, from here in Texas, actually, I was living in Houston, Texas when I was a teenager. I wanted to get far away, so I went to Seattle. I took the Greyhound, the gray dog, all the way, and I actually got a little apartment. It was an SRO. Do you know what an SRO is?
I don't.
Single room occupancy.
Okay.
So it's basically kind of like a hotel. There's like a shared bathroom on the same, for everybody on the floor, that kind of thing. And it was subsidized, and I was paying $125 a month, living right above a dive bar known as the Frontier Room. And it was like a holdout of old Seattle, right? Before the boom. And then we got the boom, the tech boom, and then literally whole neighborhoods were like razed. And they put up big condo buildings and that sort of thing. So, yeah, people started calling it the LA of the North.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know what your life has been like, but I've kind of been in several waves of gentrification, kind of pushed away from places because of that. I've always been kind of a low income person. Yeah.
Yeah, this town's getting a lot more expensive than it was when I moved here, too.
Is it?
So,
Is it kind of some overflow from Dallas-Fort Worth area? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was talking to another person yesterday, and she was saying that there's really big hospitals here, and so I guess that brings in a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of jobs at the hospitals.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was amazed by that. I do gig work to, be able to travel around. And all of the gig work last night was to the emergency rooms. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, emergency room workers.
Yeah.
You're subsidizing this interview today. Anyway, okay, so you came out here. So what was that like culturally? Like moving from a, medium-sized metro area in California to pretty small town. I mean, it's 100,000, I guess, in the area, but it feels like a really small town. It feels like it to me.
Yeah, it does to me too. And it was a huge culture shock.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved here and people would wave at you, people you didn't know.
Right.
And I would literally stop and look at them like trying to figure out where I knew them from.
Sure.
And like in the grocery store, the first time that I actually spoke to a stranger, I was very proud of myself.
Oh, yeah.
It's like in Southern California, you just, you're doing your thing. You just,
right.
You're not talking to strangers.
Yeah, everybody's kind of in a rush too. I noticed for me, I mean, that's kind of stereotypical, but I feel it sometimes. Sometimes I come to these smaller places and I'll go to a grocery store, like you're saying, and the urban part of me comes out, the faster paced, and I'm actually a very slow paced person, so I can imagine like somebody who's even faster paced than me, like they must seem alien or something.
Yeah,
like I feel it coming up, and I'm like, oh, I'm being rude to this lady because I'm not, totally talking to her about whatever it is that I'm doing. Yeah. So it's like you almost have to give a little bit more. Yeah, it's less isolating. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's more like, I want to say almost like segregation here.
Oh, okay.
Like
Are
in
you
town.
talking economically and racially and those kind of factors?
Yes, like in town, like there's the black part of town, there's the
Oh.
Hispanic part of
Yeah.
town, and then the rest of it's pretty much white.
Yeah.
You know.
I must say, and this might sound shocking, I've only seen a couple of black people so far, so I guess I haven't been to the black part of town yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess there's not a lot of mixing socially.
There's not. I mean,
Yeah.
there is some, you
Yeah.
know, and it's not like institutionalized segregation,
Yes.
but it feels like segregation to
Yeah,
me. You
yeah.
know?
You know, people say that is only in the South, but I also experienced that in California. It might be not in the same town. Like, for instance, Berkeley. You go to Berkeley, very white, except you go towards Oakland, and suddenly there's a lot more African Americans. You go up towards Richmond, and there's a lot more Hispanic people. So it's almost like the city boundaries instead of in one town.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that when you were in California. Did you perhaps notice that?
Riverside was pretty mixed. I really miss, like,
Yeah, Riverside is mixed.
Yeah.
It's a bit lower income as well, like in general.
It was.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm being relative, of course.
Yeah,
Because if you go outside of Riverside, it suddenly jumps up.
Yeah. And there's a university there.
Yeah.
So you get all kinds of people.
Right.
It was very diverse.
Right, yeah. I noticed that about Houston, very diverse. Have you been down to Houston much?
A couple times,
Yeah.
but...
Yeah. So coming here, is there anything that you miss about like a bigger place or a more urban place, like where you were living in California?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if you want to do something here, like go to a concert,
Yeah.
yeah,
right.
You've generally got to drive a couple hours.
Sure. Like into Dallas, Fort Worth, or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or to Louisiana.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Louisiana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shreveport is a decent sized town. It's Shreveport, Bossier. There's two towns right there.
Okay.
And they'll host, like, mainstream concerts
Right.
and things like that.
Right.
And they have casinos, so it's a little bit of a tourist destination.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, that catering to tourists, but brings in some of that entertainment, though, which is nice, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
But yeah, and it's about equidistance.
Okay.
From here to Shreveport or to Dallas.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I noticed when I was a teenager, sometimes teenagers from Louisiana would come into Houston to go to some of the gay bars and the punk clubs and stuff. Yeah. I always thought that was so strange. I mean, going so far, But then as an adult, I've also noticed that some people in the South will go even further. Like if they're in Mississippi and Alabama, they'll go all the way to Georgia, to Atlanta, for a weekend. Or they'll come all the way to Houston, New Orleans, to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. And the nearest gay bar is about an hour away. We don't have... This is probably the largest town in East Texas, and we don't have one here.
Yeah.
There's a smaller town that has one.
And there's kind of a large LGBT population here, it seems like.
Yeah, there is.
For such a small town. Yeah.
We actually have a gayborhood.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah, I was talking to a couple other people yesterday, and they were saying that they would both like there to be some sort of center here, because there's really nowhere where to go, even if it's not a bar, like a commercial one, like just a place to meet.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. What kind of place do you guys meet now? I mean, you don't have to say specifically, but yeah, where do you gather when there's no official sort of place to meet, I guess?
It's at a location owned by the city where you can, as a nonprofit, they let you use the room. So our local trans group is a nonprofit. Yeah. Also, the local gay group is a nonprofit.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Is the gay group like a bigger kind of organization, or is it kind of similar?
They're bigger than the trans group, but there's a lot of kind of older, sometimes conservative people.
Okay, that's the one. That's the one somebody else was talking about. they said that there were some TERFs in there, and yeah, they were very socially conservative and that sort of thing. But I also heard that that the trans group is sort of coming back and re-infiltrating them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
That's the word I was going to use,
yes.
infiltrating. One of our non-binary members is the, oh goodness, the secretary.
Okay.
I'm not sure which.
Sure, because they have a board and that sort
right,
of
they're on the board, so that's good. And that's really helped to change things.
Yeah. They said that they used some sort of parliamentarian rules or something to kick out a TERF.
Yeah.
It was a 30-second vote, and then, boom, you're gone.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Usually I've seen parliamentarian stuff like that used for bad purposes, to confuse a situation or to stop something good from happening. So it's nice to hear when it sometimes works in the favor of justice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I hate all that stuff though, like Robert's rules, and I just don't even want to know.
Yeah, and there's another ally on the board, and he really went through all of that.
Okay.
And made changes, to make it, more inclusive.
Okay, so he went through all the bylaws and okay.
Yeah,
that's some
50
work.
pages.
That's some work. Yeah. Yeah, even small organizations, they will often have very extensive bylaws. Actually, it's the ones that have very short bylaws that you have to worry about a little bit more. Because they take liberties sometimes that aren't so good.
Right, because there's no established rules.
That's right. So they can break norms too, kind of like some politicians do. Speaking of that, have you been politically active here, and kind of what is your, political philosophy? I've talked to all kinds of trans people in this project.
I'm pretty liberal.
Liberal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I try to keep up to date on the laws that are coming up, for vote and things like that. But as far as being politically active, sometimes we have protests or things like that, and
that's locally or in the bigger city?
Locally, we'll have little protests downtown and things like that. Yeah. There was actually one last night that I didn't get a chance to go to because our governor, Greg Abbott, was in town.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to hearing about how that went.
Yeah. Do you know what he was in town for? Was he at UT or something? Or
he was at a local church.
Okay.
And he
yeah, it's always interesting when politicians visit a church.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And he was advocating for the voucher program.
Oh,
for
schooling?
Schools.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So that parents can take their children out of public schools and take those funds with them to private schools.
Yeah, it's some people theorize that it's a way to defund public schooling, to get it to such a low level of funding that it just kind of collapses. Mm-hmm. And then also it can be a way to funnel public funds to religious organizations. Right. Yeah, because most of the time that money gets put into private schools that are religious. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a thing. And it sounds like Governor Abbott is pandering to that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I'd like to hear about what happened, too, because it's kind of intense to have a protest in a small conservative area, I would think.
Well, we've got some people who are really active in kind of alternative things like the Pagan community.
Okay, great.
We've actually got someone who ran for the House, the Texas House.
Okay.
Who is very political.
Okay.
And he'll go ahead and organize things too. So we've got a couple of people who get things going like that.
So kind of fearless and, just go-getters. They just do it.
Yep.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I love people like that who are just kind of like these instigators. We all have different skills, right? Mm-hmm. Some people can do it on the front end. Some people can actually be in the protest and, hold the sign and just, all that. And some people are kind of the caregivers afterwards, or try to, calm things down a little bit. We all have different roles in that, I feel like, Yeah, it takes a community, as people say, right?
Right.
So have you been involved in stuff like that? Like, what's that like going to a protest in kind of a small town?
Usually it's pretty calm, honestly.
Okay. So are people polite to you, or?
Well, a lot of times we'll have, like, counter-protesters who are screaming about Jesus and things like that.
Okay.
Which is not the most pleasant thing, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're usually a lot more rowdy than what we are.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm not saying that trans people can't be rowdy, right? They can, They definitely can be.
Yeah.
It's too bad that people who are Christian or say that they're Christian come out and try to drown you out and all that. Mm-hmm. Is that like a local church, or are those people like coming in from elsewhere?
The ones who are the worst are actually coming in from elsewhere.
That's usually how it is. Mm-hmm. They're highly organized. They target places that have a community conversation about civic issues, right? About rights and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
then they show up and cause trouble for the local people, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take a break for a second.
Okay.
Okay, we took a break for a second. I just like to do that every once in a while. So we were talking about some political stuff. What do you think? Let's get into talking about the relationship between the bigger sort of gay group you talked about. You said it was. Is it more an LGBT group, or do you think it is more of a gay group? Because there's a difference there.
Right. The name of it says gays.
Okay.
But it is really...
So they haven't updated the name.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now they call it the Gays Plus. So...
Okay.
They changed it. But...
Okay, we're mostly gays. Maybe you guys can come, and hang out with us.
Yeah. I mean, up until recently, it was really like an LG group.
Sure, okay. Not even the B's in there, just
maybe
LG.
Once in a while, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've started going to their events more.
Okay.
And there's
just making your presence known.
Oh, yeah,
taking
for sure.
up space.
For sure.
Yeah, great.
So it's starting to skew a little bit younger, not just older people. We've got some younger people in it too now.
Yeah.
And
would you say kind of the demographics of this other one? You said older, but also maybe established property owners, married, that sort of thing. So a class difference as well.
Generally,
yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Usually people who are in, and I don't mean this politically conservative, but like more socially conservative gays. Like that's kind of the demographic. Usually property owners, usually married. Yeah.
And they generally don't like to talk about politics or get involved either.
Right. So that's kind of interesting, right? It's always the younger or the fringe older people or whatever, the freaks who are doing all the work.
Yeah.
Right? I always wonder what the more establishment gays are doing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not exactly young. I'm 45 years old. So when I say they're older, they're older than me, generally.
Sure.
So.
And they're probably peers of mine, and maybe older too. I'm in my 50s. But there's also kind of this older mindset. It's not like I'm immature or something. I just feel like I have changed over time. I've kept up with what's going on. I change my language constantly.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah. How about you? You're older, you're middle-aged, right? Mm-hmm. You have lovely gray hair and I have some white coming in. What do you think about that? Like, keeping up with a lot of changes? Because I would say over the last 10 years, at least, there's been a lot of changes in language.
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Because it changes how you think about things when you change your words.
It does. It really does. It's not superficial at all. It's actually really deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that too.
Yeah. What kind of terms are you specifically talking about here?
I think there's been a lot of more non-binary people who have come out. You know, so using pronouns other than he or she has become really important.
Yes.
You know, also the kind of like assigned male at birth rather than MTF.
Yes.
You know, those type of language.
Yeah.
So
I still sometimes use FTM and MTF, partly because that's kind of the generation I'm in, but I'm wondering if I'm using that as an excuse, you know, of being older, so I still use those terms. Speaking of that, when did you, I'm making an assumption here, when did you start transitioning?
Actually, only about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So, older when I started.
So as an older person, which you are, what propelled you to start transitioning as an older person, I guess?
Well, I had
later in life.
Yeah, I had been saying for years, like, if I was younger, I would have done it.
Okay.
You know, and kind of had that regret, but...
Oh, regret is terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a terrible, terrible thing to live with. Yeah.
And so, I started going into early menopause.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to go through extreme hormonal changes, it might as well be for something that I want.
That's right. That's right.
So I went ahead and started HRT.
Yeah. I've actually heard that from a couple of other older trans men as well. You know, it was being recommended to them to go on female hormones to mitigate some of the menopausal symptoms, and they were like, hell no. You know,
right.
I've been wanting to go on testosterone forever, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So, one of the things that was easier to get, you know, for a while, I would say in the aughties and the last decade, was that things were getting easier for trans people. You know, when I came out, it was still a little bit difficult in the late 90s, but then informed consent came in, and accessing trans healthcare was easier. Now it's getting a lot harder, right? Which we can talk about in a minute. So more young people are able to transition, right? And then older people who've thought about it for a long time, it's also opened up for them, which is really great.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're able to do that, because not only there used to be such a social stigma about it, right? And that was somewhat alleviated, but also it was opened up, and oh yeah, I can do this. It's not that big of a deal. But now we have all these bills and laws that are coming up very recently.
Yeah.
And that must be really quite an impact here in Texas, because I've heard that just, you know, I mean, Florida and Texas keep you know, vying for who's going to be the worst state.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the leadership and oppression, and Texas is right up there. There's a lot of state oppression here. So yeah. I guess I'm wondering how you guys are dealing with that, personally and as well as a community.
It's pretty rough. Like when they proposed this new bill, which is HB 1029.
Okay.
That would essentially make it illegal for anyone to go on hormones.
People our age.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, we got together after that had happened. We had a game night, and we were all just so depressed. Yeah. Like, sitting there like, oh my gosh, you know, our lives are going to end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's pretty rough, and, you know, we're rallying and starting to come back together and, you know, hoping that will not pass. But there are so many bills coming up about youth, and I'm sure that some of those will pass.
Yeah. It's weird how there's this momentum that's going on. Like, I wonder how that started. Do you have any ideas about that? Because, I mean, it seems like the more so-called red states just keep following each other and seeing what they're doing and copying.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where this momentum is coming from.
My theory is that the far right needs a boogeyman. Okay. And now that it is more acceptable to be gay, they've moved on to an even smaller group of people.
Right.
So I think a a lot of the language that was used against gay people in the past is now being used against trans people.
Which we probably heard growing up.
Yes.
Right? We heard some of this language before.
Oh, yeah. Gay men were all just, pervert pedophiles, all of that kind of stuff. And now that's what they're saying about trans people and drag queens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And also, it doesn't seem like there's much of a response from the Democrats either. Like, they seem really quiet right now.
Yeah.
It's almost like they are kind of allowing it to happen,
Yeah, I feel like the Democratic Party has become really useless.
Yeah.
They just don't do things.
Yeah.
They're just kind of there.
Yeah. They just kind of react to what the Republicans are doing, but it's a very mild reaction.
Right.
When I think of progress, when I think of social change, I think of doing something proactive. I think of, like, getting out there and making a strong stance, right?
Yeah.
And being firm to not give in, right? To protect people, right? Because we actually do need protection.
Yes.
We're a tiny, tiny minority. There are not a lot of trans people in the world, right? And a lot of us are poor, right? We've had discrimination our whole lives in various ways. And here we have the state vilifying us all the time and making laws to take away our rights. Every American should be against that. Every American.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's been a really large response from the general community about the issues affecting drag queens.
Oh.
And less so about the issues affecting trans people.
Oh, yes, right.
So.
Because you're talking about, like, the greater community, like the LGBT plus community.
Right.
So they're more upset about drag queens not reading books to children rather than the rights being taken away from trans people.
That's the way I feel.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right. I've definitely seen a lot more organizations and individuals who are maybe artists and that sort of thing promoting the idea of the drag queen community being more oppressed. I haven't seen a lot about trans people. Even from our own community, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like trans people are rallying to support the drag queens, and it's not coming back the other way so much.
Yeah. And I've seen that a little bit, but not to the extent that it needs to happen.
Yeah.
We need everybody rallying for us.
For sure.
I mean, this might be controversial because, drag queens obviously have a deep history in the queer community, and I fucking love them. I fucking love drag queens because they keep us not only entertained but lighthearted, and in a community that's always faced oppression. That's really important. The campiness, the survival, the humor, the parodies, all that stuff that they do. But if we limit Drag Queen Story Hour, that's, I'm going to say it, it's less important. I mean, it's all important, but it's less important than my ability to get health care, my ability to get a job, my ability to, travel. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen down the road?
Right.
So it seems like it's very difficult to live in a state like this. I mean, there's a lot of people in this same boat. Even in so-called blue states, the Republicans are trying things. It's just wave after wave after wave of these bills. Some of them are passing. What does that feel like to live in a place like this with that happening?
It's pretty scary, honestly, because knowing that all these bills are coming through and people are supporting them, it's like it makes it sometimes scary to go outside.
So not only that the legislators are supporting it, but people in your community.
They're jumping on that too.
Yeah. I'm surprised actually that I haven't, in traveling around, I haven't seen more of that. More public protest, but then also support. because it seems like there's a lot happening. And it's almost like we're waiting to see what happens, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it really going to get that bad? It feels like it is.
It does.
It feels like it is. Yeah, all parts of life are being impacted right now for us.
Yeah, and like Tennessee has passed an anti-drag law, and so some of our trans women could be arrested for just being on the street.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of like old oppression from even before our times, right? Mm-hmm. There were laws about the number of articles of clothing you could wear of supposedly of a different gender.
Right.
Yeah. So that's like really old laws that are, they're trying to bring back. What are we going to do next? Women can't wear pants. Women can only go to certain professions, because, safety equipment, maybe that's a man's thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing?
I don't know. I don't know where it's going to stop.
Yeah. Is this what we mean when we're making America great again?
Yeah, not so much.
No, not so much. I kind of wonder what social conservatives or conservatives in general are even thinking, because they talk about small government, a lot, and freedom and stuff. And I just think they're lying all the time. I would like to think that they believe that stuff, but I just think they're lying all the time.
Yeah.
Because if you're getting into people's lives and the minutia of people's lives, that's certainly not small government.
No. So if the one bill passes that makes HRT illegal, a lot of us are going to plan to leave because we have to.
Right.
Right. And I can't go back. I can't be forcibly detransitioned. Mm-hmm. That's not an option for me.
Right.
So.
Right. And it seems like, they always prop up the one or two detransitioners that they parade around to different things that they buy the plane ticket for to get them to these hearings. Right. But then they're turning around and detransitioning everybody who is absolutely happy with what they've done with their lives, which is like 99% of everybody. It's interesting what they're doing. It must be terrifying, I would think.
Yes. And speaking about, how words matter, they use words like, we're mutilating ourselves, for anybody who gets a surgery or anything like that. Sure. My father is very conservative, and he is in California, so luckily I'm not dependent on him for anything.
Sure.
But when I came out to him, he used that sort of language.
Oh, no.
You're going to be mutilating yourself, and I don't have contact with him anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting they're calling it mutilation, whereas plastic surgery has been around for a really long time.
Exactly.
I mean, it was developed to help people who had injuries in war, who had some sort of disfiguration, injuries, that sort of thing, and it's also developed to help people who are trans, and various things. I mean, nose jobs,
exactly,
breast enhancement. I've seen even billboards here in Texas about enhancement in the lower region of the body for men, and also you can go to small malls where outdoor malls, and there'll be like a hormone place where you can go and you can get hormones if you have erectile dysfunction and that sort of thing. Sure. So we have this care that's available to some people, right? And what is birth control? It's the same thing that trans women take,
right?
So all of these things are available to some people, but they're trying to make it illegal for other people.
Right. It's okay for cis people.
Yes. Yeah, but it's not okay for us, apparently. Yeah, it's really intense. We're stratifying society again. Some people do get access to things some people don't, you know. Actually, I don't think that ever went away, but we're really aggressively following that again. Let's go back to the bad old days is what we're doing.
And it happens to be super focused on trans people right now.
Right. So, in this community, or other people you might have contact with, is anybody maybe considering leaving Texas?
Yeah, we've seriously talked about it. You know, I mean, it's probably only going to be if that one bill passes.
Yeah.
But,
so, what are the other bills that aren't the emergency situation, I guess?
So many of them are focused on the young people.
Okay.
And
that must be terrifying for parents.
Yes. Yeah. There is one that will consider it child abuse.
Yeah.
For a parent to help transition their child.
Right.
And they could have their children taken away.
Yeah. So then the children would become wards of the state, which Texas does not take care of children very well. No. I was in the system here, and I will tell you it was like being in jail. Lots of abuse. Horrible. So I would not wish that on any youngster. And also being taken away from their parents. I mean, goodness gracious. That's traumatic in itself.
Right. Parents who are just being supportive.
Yeah. That's... so it points to the state terrorizing people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, using state apparatus.
And of course, there are also the drag queen laws that are coming through, or potentially coming through, which again will be extremely difficult for trans women.
Yeah.
You know, my friends are here, my support network is here.
Right.
I would hate to have to move away on my own.
You've been here, what, like 17 years, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. So it would be really difficult for me, but I will do it if I have to.
Yeah. And that would be another dramatic move. You would, be uprooting yourself, like you said, from your friends, your workplace. Yeah. I wonder if a lot of people are doing that. Like, if this is kind of a planned thing. Like Texas wants to get rid of the more blue voters, by being as extreme as possible.
Yeah, you know about Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. She's a troublemaker.
She suggested that people who vote blue who move to red states should not be able to vote in that state for the first couple years they're there or something.
Oh, I hadn't even heard about that.
Yeah, I mean, she comes out with all kinds of crazy things, of course. But
it seems like every day there's something.
Yeah, that was
I didn't even know that. Yeah. So you have to kind of prove yourself, and then you can vote.
Right, okay. Get immersed in the culture or whatever.
I would like her to prove herself. That she is capable of doing her job. I don't think so. Yeah. She said some stupid shit. Are there any politicians here that you feel like are doing any kind of good job or pushing back at all? Do you have faith in anybody? I mean, there must be some out there that are doing something. I haven't heard from them.
I don't hear them making any noise at all.
How about church leaders, the welcoming churches and that sort of thing?
No, they want to stay out of it.
Okay,
they want to stay out of it.
Now, have you had discussions with them about that, or is just what you've noticed?
I've talked to some people who are religious.
Okay,
and they're basically, I've been like, come to our protest. Yeah. Speak to the Christian people who are against us.
Right.
If you're for us,
make that bridge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need you to advocate for us.
Yes.
And they're just, not interested.
Okay. So. Wow. Well, specifically, can you tell me why they're not interested? Because religion is very important to me, and I feel like a lot of good in this country, a lot of bad things have happened, but also a lot of good in this country has come from the religious sort of left, right? People who think about justice and liberty and that sort of thing for every individual, right? We have lots of religious leaders who've done a lot of good in this country. MLK, for instance, is, of course, an outstanding example. why are they not getting involved? Because this is such a primary justice issue.
Yeah.
You know, the state coming down on a small community and oppressing them. That is the history of Christianity. You'd think that they would have some sympathy about that.
Exactly. And I mean, they will give it lip service, you know,
Okay.
be like, oh, this is wrong. We don't agree with this.
Yeah.
We're not that type of Christian.
Okay.
You know.
So they're not aggressively oppressing people,
Right.
but they're not stopping it.
Right.
Okay.
They get defensive, I think.
Defensive. Okay.
Yeah.
Like how?
Like in that, like people will be talking negatively about the Christians who are so loudly against us. And they're like, oh, but that's not me.
That's not me.
You know, and so I think it's just not important enough to them.
Okay. Do you think they will ever be rallied into action, or they're just going to stay quiet?
I believe they'll stay quiet.
They'll stay quiet. Yeah. I've had similar discussions actually with liberals who are cis, who are not trans. And I'm like, what does it take for you to get active? Because you are not active right now. You know that something's going on. And they say things like, oh, well, if I get angry, if I protest, if I do this, I'm just going to fan the flames of hatred and things are going to get worse. Well, things are going to get worse anyway. They're pretty damn bad right now. Mm-hmm. You know, what is it going to take for you to get active? I actually told one lady, does it take our dead bodies to do that? Right? Because that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't think it's going to stop. When fascists get some power, they keep going. You can't be polite to them and expect them to stop. And this is fascism that we're going through. I'm not using that term lightly. Right. I'm not one of those people that throws that term out all the time. We have the state legislating against particular people in our country and taking away their rights. That's fascism.
And I mean, geez, what was that guy's name? I'm not going to remember his name, but he's like a content creator.
Okay.
And he was saying that transgenderism.
Oh, Michael Knowles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Needs to be completely eradicated.
Right.
And it's like, how do you eradicate transgenderism without eradicating trans people?
Right.
You know, whether it's forcing them to detransition or something worse.
Right. Right. So this is a social conservative commentator. He's on the radio. He's online. And he was at the CPAC, which is the conservative conference that happens. And yeah, so he was calling for genocide, basically. Yeah. And he was headlining. He was one of the headliners that was speaking. Yeah. And they've had quite a lineup the last few years. It's actually not surprising to me that happened, because their lineup has been pretty pro-fascist the last few years. I don't know their history before that because I didn't follow them, but it's pretty egregious what they've been saying. So it's a really tough situation. I'm so sorry that you are thinking about contemplating moving, because it seems like you really made a home here. You have a sweet community that's growing, and you guys are doing cool things like the motorcycle gang. I mean, basically,
club. Not
okay,
gang.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say gang.
Okay.
I want to see you guys do some sort of West Side Story kind of thing.
Oh, goodness.
with dancing and everything.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
I know. I bet there's a couple theater geeks in there. Can make it happen. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, contemplating leaving the place that you have called home for a while is pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah, it's tough. I myself also like to live in smaller places that are, some people consider are conservative or whatever, or rural, religious. Sometimes it can be tough. It can definitely be tough. It's interesting because you can share some values with people, like privacy, freedom. I love guns. I'm gonna just say it. I like going to the range. I like there's a lot of things that I share with people, but then if they don't respect my identity, if they want to take everything away from me, it would be hard to contemplate living in a place like that. Yeah. So I feel for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've talked about some of the bad stuff. What would you like to see happen in more of a positive sense? What would you like to see happen for the trans community here or just in general?
Well, some of it has been happening. Yeah. Like, the first time that I went to the trans meeting, there were 4 people there, including me and a parent. You know, now we regularly have 20 people.
Oh, great.
You know,
great.
And it's like, it's such a small community like this. You just wouldn't even know that there were that many trans people here.
I was so surprised.
Yeah.
Like, when I contacted people up here, you know, through, I think it was just like a generic Texas list or something, I was like, oh, you're from Tyler too. Oh, Tyler too. I actually had to turn some people down just because I don't have the energy to do a lot of interviews sometimes, right? But people were trying to hook me up with even more interviews.
Yeah.
You know? I was like, wow. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
People aren't just going to take what's happening.
No,
you know?
We've got a pretty tight group.
Yeah.
So.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what else? What do you think? What would you
I
like to
guess
see?
just seeing people in the general public being more supportive and less, you know, I mean, you'll get stares. You'll get people who call you the wrong thing, like sir or ma'am.
On purpose?
You know. Yes, sometimes on purpose. Like, for example, one of the people that you interviewed is a trans woman.
Yeah.
She'll get Mr.
Oh, wow.
A lot. Or sir.
Yeah.
You know, because people are just rude like that. I mean, and she obviously is not a sir, you know.
No, not at all.
But
in fact, she's really quite lovely and, you know, very, very comfortable in her body. So, yeah.
So it'd be nice to have people, you know, perhaps even use gender-neutral terms when they are speaking to someone that they don't know.
Right.
You know?
If there's some doubt, then sort of default to they or them. Yeah.
And I would like to see sir and ma'am just drop completely out of the lexicon.
That's very hard, though, here in the more southern states, because it's sort of part of the culture.
It is. It is. People just out with it without even thinking about it. You know, it's so automatic.
Right.
So.
Right, yeah. Anything else in terms of, like, the state, I guess? What kind of things would you like to see?
Well, I mean, at one point we were kind of considered purple, but it's definitely swung back red.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
And I consider myself pretty progressive. That's probably where I would, you know, categorize myself.
How would you, I guess, define progressivism then?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, definitely to the left of the Democrats. You know, wanting more social programs than what they advocate for.
Yeah.
You know, like universal health care, things like that.
What do you think about UBI?
What is that?
Universal Basic Income.
Oh, I love it. I wish we had that.
Yeah.
You know.
It would alleviate so much poverty. I mean, instantly.
Definitely.
Instantly.
I mean, there's no reason we should have so much poverty in this country.
Right.
There's no reason children should go hungry.
Yeah.
You know, if we had that basic income, maybe we wouldn't need food stamps because they'd have enough money to buy food.
Right.
You know.
And the any sort of discomfort, embarrassment, shame that comes from applying for those benefits as well, those social welfare benefits, would also be alleviated. And that's a big factor. It really wears people down to go through all these processes just to get some help.
Yeah,
you know?
And a lot of times you have to, like, reapply every year, things like that.
Prove stuff, you know. It used to be, too, that if you were married, you were actually penalized, or if you were cohabitating, you're penalized.
It still is like that with disability.
Yes, I know a disabled person who lives with his best friend, and because of that, because they cook together, he doesn't get food stamps, and that's absolutely crazy to me. you know, because it makes him dependent on this other person.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's so awful. It's so awful. It's so awful. Yeah. But then we have all these loans and bailouts that we give corporations. It's so unjust. It's so unjust. We need to fix this country.
Yeah. Hopefully the younger generation will help with that.
Yeah. I hope so. Come on, y'all. We need your help. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience today. I'm a little bit tired. I had trouble sleeping. I only got 4.5 hours, which is not enough.
Right.
So we've had to take a little bit of breaks here, and I'm not as smooth as I might be. Anyway, all right. There's a whole bunch I'm going to have to cut for time just because I'm being a weirdo today. But thank you so much for meeting with me. Yeah.
Of course.
Good luck on your continued transition. I hope that you don't encounter, limiting your medical care, because that's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big sigh on that one. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And whatever choices you make, I hope that goes smoothly too, if you have to move, etc. Yeah.
Thank you.
I know. It's like terrible. Imagine having kids too. Like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, some of my friends probably won't be able to move because of custody issues in the state, you know. But
pulling kids out of school too, and moving, and all the money that takes, and privilege as well. Like, not everybody would be able to.
Right.
Not everybody is going to be able to if things go bad, if they get worse.
Yeah, the only reason I would be able to is because I could sell this.
Right.
And use that money to move.
Right.
You know.
Right. But then you wouldn't have your sweet little RV here.
Right. I'd have to probably rent a place.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me. It's just lovely to meet you. Yeah, I love it. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah. All right, y'all. I am off to Oklahoma City today, and that is my last stop on my road trip. And I'll be talking to quite a few people up there, and I'm excited about that. Much like Tyler, because they're a very impacted community as well from state oppression, they are also rallying and getting together. And, that's kind of the silver lining, is that community comes together more sometimes in times of need. And I'm really looking forward to talking to people up there. So, and then going back home to Alaska.
All right.
All right. Thanks, y'all.